Was Nostradamus a genius, a fraud, or something else entirely? Over 450 years after his death, his cryptic prophecies continue to fascinate, mystify, and divide us. But who was the man behind the legend? How did a 16th century astrologer, who once fought plagues with herbal remedies, become one of history's most talked about figures? From battling deadly diseases to influencing modern pop culture, Nostradamus' story is as mysterious as the predictions he left behind. Why are we so obsessed with predicting the future? Is it fear, curiosity, or the hope that someone somewhere might hold the answers we're searching for? Today, we unravel the life and legacy of Nostradamus, the man, the myth, and the mysteries that keep us coming back centuries later. Let's dive in. Let's go back to the year 1503. In the quaint region of Provence, France, a child named Michel de Nostradamus was born. It was a time of extraordinary change. The Renaissance was in full swing, an era that celebrated art, science, and the limitless potential of human curiosity. From an early age, young Michel showed a remarkable thirst for knowledge. He was immersed in the classics, learning Latin and Greek, mastering mathematics, and gazing up at the stars, captivated by their mysteries. Imagine him, a curious boy under a vast night sky, wondering about the universe and his place in it. Little did he know, these early fascinations would shape his path and legacy. What do you think inspired him most? The stars, the books, or the chaos of his time? Share your thoughts below. As Michel grew older, his focus shifted toward medicine. By the 1520s, he was training as a physician, earning a reputation for his determination and resourcefulness. At a time when Europe was ravaged by the plague, Michel didn't just rely on traditional methods. He pioneered new approaches, insisting on clean water, creating herbal remedies, and encouraging hygiene practices that were far ahead of his time. These efforts saved countless lives and established him as a healer in an age of despair. But Michel's story wasn't happening in a vacuum. The Renaissance was a time of great change and discovery. Scientific discoveries challenged long-held beliefs. Religious upheaval shook Europe to its core, and explorers were charting unknown territories. The rapid changes of the time had a profound effect on Michel, sparking his curiosity about mysteries far beyond medicine. These early experiences, his love of learning, his fight against the plague, and the intellectual spirit of the Renaissance, laid the foundation for the man we now know as Nostradamus, a man whose curiosity about the natural world would soon expand to the mysteries of time itself. In the mid-1540s, Michel de Nostradamus, now known as Nostradamus, began the work that would define his legacy, the Prophecies. These weren't ordinary writings. They were quatrains, four-line poems written in a cryptic, symbolic style that seemed to blur the line between poetry and prophecy. Nostradamus's words were deliberately mysterious, layered with metaphors and references that were open to interpretation. Some believe this vagueness was intentional, allowing his predictions to resonate across generations. Others argue it was a way to protect himself in an era when speaking too boldly could land you in serious trouble. One of his most famous quatrains appears to foretell the Great Fire of London in 1666. It reads, "The blood of the just will commit a fault at London, burnt through lightning of 23's the 6. The ancient lady will fall from her high place. Several of the same sect will be killed." Could this really describe the catastrophic fire that consumed London over a century after Nostradamus' death? Or is it a coincidence that fits only because we want it to? Another quatrain is often linked to World War II and Adolf Hitler. It mentions a figure called Hister and a great war involving rivers of blood. Skeptics argue that Hister was simply an old name for the Danube River, but believers see it as undeniable proof of his foresight. As Nostradamus' fame grew, so did his circle of influence. One of his most important supporters was Catherine de' Medici, the Queen of France. She was captivated by his prophecies and invited him to her court, elevating him to a status few astrologers ever achieved. But with fame came risk. Nostradamus' work attracted admirers and critics alike. Many praised his insight and saw him as a visionary, but others accused him of heresy or fraud, claiming his prophecies were either dangerous or nonsensical. Despite the dangers, Nostradamus continued to write, driven by a belief that his work held meaning beyond his own lifetime. Imagine him in a dimly lit room, surrounded by stacks of books and astrological charts, his quill scratching across parchment as he peered into the future. The prophecies of Nostradamus were unlike anything seen before, blending art, science, and mysticism. Whether they were genuine visions or clever poetry, they ensured that his name would echo through the centuries, sparking debates, wonder, and even fear. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss more fascinating journeys into history's most enigmatic figures. How did Nostradamus create his famous quatrains, those four-line verses that continue to intrigue and baffle us? Let's take a closer look at the fascinating process behind his writing. First, Nostradamus was deeply influenced by the wisdom of the past. He studied ancient texts like the Bible, drawing inspiration from its apocalyptic imagery and prophetic tone. He also relied heavily on astrological charts, mapping the positions of the stars and planets to find patterns and insights that might hint at future events. For Nostradamus, the heavens weren't just a canvas of beauty. They were a blueprint for understanding the forces shaping the world. But it wasn't just about looking to the stars. Nostradamus had a profound knowledge of history, which he skillfully wove into his work. He believed that history often repeats itself, and used symbolic language to reflect this idea. By blending historical events with his own interpretations, he created quatrains that felt both timeless and eerily relevant. For example, his choice of words was deliberately ambiguous. He used metaphors, synonyms, and even slight anagrams to obscure the meaning, making his verses open to multiple interpretations. This style gave his prophecies a kind of elasticity. They could stretch to fit different events across centuries. But was this a stroke of genius, pure luck, or a calculated strategy? Some argue that Nostradamus' writing was a masterclass in calculated ambiguity. By keeping his quatrains vague, he ensured that readers could find connections to real-world events, no matter the era. Others believe he genuinely had glimpses of the future, but lacked the tools or language to fully articulate them. Whatever the truth, Nostradamus' writing process wasn't random. It was a careful balance of science, art, and mysticism. He combined ancient wisdom, historical knowledge, and astrological insight to craft verses that could endure the test of time. And whether you see his work as prophecy or poetry, one thing is certain: Nostradamus' quatrains continue to spark debates, interpretations, and fascination to this day. In 1566, after a life filled with fame, mystery, and controversy, Nostradamus passed away. But in true Nostradamus fashion, his death became a story all its own. Legend has it that he predicted the very day of his death, reportedly telling his assistant, "You will not find me alive at sunrise." Sure enough, by the next morning, Nostradamus was gone. Whether this was a final prophecy or just a coincidence, it added to the aura of mystique surrounding his name. Even after his death, the myths didn't stop. One tale claims that Nostradamus had a secret message engraved on his tomb, warning that anyone who disturbed his burial would face dire consequences. And wouldn't you know it? Centuries later, when his grave was reportedly opened during the French Revolution, the legend says that the person responsible met an untimely death soon after. True or not, stories like these only deepened the mystery of Nostradamus. But Nostradamus's real legacy lies in his book, the Prophecies, and the centuries within it. Over the years, different generations have found new meanings in his quatrains, linking them to major historical events. For example, Napoleon Bonaparte, one of history's most famous figures, is believed by some to have been foretold in Nostradamus's writings. A quatrain mentions a leader who rises from humble origins and causes upheaval across Europe, details that seem to align with Napoleon's life. Fast forward to World War II, and Nostradamus's quatrain about Hister surfaced again. Some interpreted this as a reference to Adolf Hitler, while skeptics pointed out that Hister was an old name for the Danube River. This ambiguity sparked decades of debate over whether it was a prophetic insight or a historical coincidence. Even modern events like the attacks on 9/11 have been tied to his work. A quatrain about 2 steel birds falling and fire in the great city was widely circulated after the tragedy. While skeptics argue that these interpretations stretch the meaning of his words, believers see them as undeniable proof of his foresight. Of course, not all of Nostradamus's predictions have stood the test of time. Take, for instance, his supposed prophecy about the world ending in 1999. When the year came and went without apocalypse, critics pounced, pointing to this as evidence that his work was more imagination than prophecy. But maybe that's part of the allure. Nostradamus's quatrains are like a puzzle, open-ended, thought-provoking, and always up for debate. Whether his predictions were accurate, coincidental, or cleverly vague, they've ensured that his name continues to echo through history. Even now, centuries later, we're still talking about him, still dissecting his words, and still searching for meaning. And perhaps that's the greatest legacy of all, not the predictions themselves, but their power to make look for patterns, question the future, and wonder about the mysteries of time. At the heart of Nostradamus's enduring appeal is humanity's psychological need for meaning. His cryptic quatrains offer just enough ambiguity to invite endless interpretations, keeping his legacy alive. And let's not forget the media's role in keeping his legacy alive. From documentaries to news stories, his name resurfaces every time a major event shakes the world. Headlines like, "Did Nostradamus predict this?" grab attention because they tap into our fascination with prophecy and our desire to make sense of chaos. But not everyone is convinced. Skeptics argue that Nostradamus's quatrains are vague by design. Their open-ended nature makes it easy to find connections to real-world events, even if those connections are a stretch. This is called confirmation bias, our tendency to interpret information in a way that confirms what we already believe. One of the most debated interpretations ties Nostradamus's quatrains to the 9/11 attacks, while phrases like 2 steel birds falling sparked intrigue. These connections often emerged only after the event, highlighting how interpretations can be shaped by hindsight. While these connections fueled intrigue, there's no record of this interpretation existing before the tragedy, highlighting how interpretations are often shaped by hindsight. Despite these criticisms, there's no denying that Nostradamus's work continues to resonate. In some ways, he can be seen as a precursor to modern-day futurists and trend forecasters. Today, we have artificial intelligence predicting everything from stock market trends to climate change. Like Nostradamus, these systems analyze patterns and project possibilities, though their tools are data and algorithms rather than astrology and poetic language. So, was Nostradamus a 16th century pioneer of predictive analytics? Maybe not exactly, but his quatrains, with their blend of mystery, history, and imagination, reflect a universal human desire to understand what lies ahead. Whether you see him as a prophet, a poet, or a clever opportunist, Nostradamus' legacy reminds us of one simple truth. We've always been fascinated by the future and the hope that someone, somewhere, might have the answers we seek. Nostradamus may be the most famous name in prophecy, but he wasn't the only figure in history to captivate the world with predictions. Across different cultures, we find similar individuals whose words shaped beliefs and stirred imaginations. Take the Oracle of Delphi in ancient Greece, for example. High priestesses would deliver cryptic messages from the gods, much like Nostradamus' quatrains. Their words were often vague and open to interpretation, leaving room for the listener to find meaning. Sound familiar? In the Islamic world, mystics like Ibn Arabi explored visions and spiritual insights that were seen as glimpses into the divine plan. Even in Indian traditions, astrologers have long used celestial movements to predict events, much like Nostradamus' reliance on the stars. These parallels show that the human desire to peer into the future transcends borders, cultures, and religions. What makes Nostradamus unique, though, is how his work has remained relevant for over 450 years. His quatrains connect to a universal tradition of prophecy, while also becoming a standalone cultural phenomenon. Fast forward to today, and Nostradamus' influence extends far beyond scholarly debates or historical texts. His name has become a part of pop culture itself. He's been featured in movies and TV shows, often portrayed as a mysterious, shadowy figure with a crystal-clear view of the future. From documentaries to fictional adaptations, the allure of Nostradamus as a character has only grown. And then there's the internet. Nostradamus' quatrains have inspired countless memes and viral posts. Anytime something shocking or unexpected happens, you'll see social media light up with claims like, "Did Nostradamus predict this?" Sometimes it's serious, other times it's all in good fun. Either way, his name keeps popping up, proving that his brand of prophecy still captures the public imagination. Over the centuries, Nostradamus' name has become synonymous with the idea of predicting the future. It's used as shorthand for anyone making bold claims about what's to come, whether they're a scientist forecasting the weather or a fortune teller reading palms. His legacy isn't just about the predictions themselves, it's about how they've woven into the fabric of global culture, connecting the past, the present, and the endless question: what does the future hold? Nostradamus wasn't just a man of his time, he's a man for all time. His quatrains may have been born in 16th century France, but their influence has spread across centuries and continents, making him one of the most enduring figures in the world of prophecy. As we reach the end of Nostradamus' incredible story, it's time to reflect. For centuries, his quatrains have captivated the world, debated, reinterpreted, and analyzed over and over again. But maybe the real question isn't whether Nostradamus could actually see the future. Maybe it's about why we are so compelled to find meaning in his words. Nostradamus lived in uncertain times. Wars, plagues, and upheaval surrounded him. His readers sought his prophecies not just for predictions, but for a sense of order in the chaos. And here we are, centuries later, still drawn to his work for similar reasons. Is it the hope for answers? A curiosity about what might lie ahead? Or is it simply our own need to find patterns in the randomness of life? From the Renaissance to today, Nostradamus' story reminds us of a universal truth. In uncertainty, we seek clarity, and in chaos, we look for patterns. His work continues to inspire curiosity about the mysteries of time and humanity's place in it. This journey through his life and legacy reveals something more profound. Nostradamus' story is as much about us as it is about him. Our fascination with his work reflects our timeless desire to make sense of the unknown, to find purpose in unpredictability, and to believe, even briefly, that the future can be understood. So, what do you think? Did Nostradamus truly foresee the future? Or has his legacy grown from our timeless desire to understand the unknown? Whatever you believe, one thing remains certain. Nostradamus' legacy transcends prophecy. It's a reflection of our endless fascination with time, mystery, and the belief, if only for a moment, that the future is within our grasp. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life, work, and impact of Nostradamus. If you're intrigued by stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep the conversation going. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious